Peace be upon you. This is Said Mirza from MillionaireReason.com, and today's topic is about shirk, that is, ascribing a partnership with God. If you have ever entered a mosque, chances are that you would have seen the words Allah and Muhammad displayed prominently side by side in there. I always found it strange that a religion that professes uncompromising monotheism would have the name of a man displayed right next to the Lord of all mankind. Yet, this symbolism indicates to us what the religion of Islam really is. It is a shirk-based religion which takes the teachings of God in the Qur'an side by side with the alleged teachings of a man. I am, of course, talking about the hadith literature. Setting aside the problem of whether the hadith literature are the actual sayings and actions of the Prophet Muhammad or fabrications by later people such as Bukhari, the fact of the matter is that God never authorized the Messenger and Prophet Muhammad to create or issue laws. He was to deliver and follow the Qur'an alone. This is chapter 10, verse 15. And when our proofs are recited to them as clear signs, those who look not for the meeting with us say, Bring thou a Qur'an other than this, or change thou it. Say thou, It is not for me to change it of my own accord. I follow only what is revealed to me. I fear, if I should disobey my Lord, the punishment of a tremendous day. So we gather from this that when the Messenger of God, Prophet Muhammad, was reciting to them the proofs of God, the verses of God from the Quran, they would reply to say that bring a Quran that is other than this, as in they did not like the teachings in there, or they said change it. And Prophet Muhammad was commanded to say that it is not for me to change it of my own accord. I follow only what is revealed to me, which shows you that Prophet Muhammad himself was following the Quran alone. He was not inventing teachings or laws. God alone has the right to legislate, and the totality of laws that a believer must follow are present in the Quran. This is what is meant by the word Al-Kitab in the Quran. The Al-Kitab is a writ or law of God, and this is the same law that was given to the children of Israel via Moses. Of course, Muslims will claim that they are not committing shirk and that God commanded them to obey the messenger. I have dealt with this argument at length in previous videos, so I will not deal with it here. Suffice it to say that Prophet Muhammad was himself following the Quran alone, and he was in no position to issue laws, fatwas, or religious edicts. He, like the prophets before him, was commanded to judge people by the law, the writ, that God gave him, that is, the Al-Kitab. As believers, we are called upon similarly by God to study and teach the law and to judge by the law in the Quran, nothing more, nothing less. This is chapter 3, verses 78 through 80. And among them a faction distorts the writ with their tongues, that you might think it from the writ, but it is not from the writ. And they say, It is from God, but it is not from God. And they ascribe the lie to God when they know. It is not for a mortal that God should give him the writ and judgment and prophethood. Then he should say to men, Be servants to me rather than God, but be men of God by what you have thought of the writ and by what you have studied. And nor would he command you to take the angels and the prophets as lords. Would he command you to denial after you have been submitting? Now, what's interesting to note is that the scholars of the religion of Islam, day and night, are using the hadith literature in their speeches, in their fatwas, in their religious edicts, and they are distorting the law of God and saying that this is what they're saying is from the law of God, but it's not from the law of God. And those people who have knowledge of the law, the Al-Kitab, they know this. The religion of Islam takes the Quran and the Hadith literature as sources of law, where the Quran is clear that it alone is the source of law. By doing so, Muslims are committing shirk. They have taken laws written by men side by side with the law of God. As I said earlier, God alone has the right to legislate, not men. This is chapter 6, verse 114. Is it other than God I should seek as judge when he it is that sent down to you the writ set out and detailed? And those to whom we gave the writ know that it is sent down from thy Lord with the truth. So be thou not of those who doubt. Prophet Muhammad himself was told to judge by the Al-Kitab, the law, the writ. He was not inventing his own laws as is commonly taught by the Muslims. This is chapter 5, verses 48 and 49. And we send down to thee the writ with the truth, confirming what is before it of the writ, and as a control over it. So judge thou between them by what God has sent down, and follow thou not their vain desires away from what has come to thee of the truth. For each of you we appointed an ordinance and a procedure, and had God willed, he could have made you one community, but that he might try you in what he gave you. So why in good deeds unto God will you return altogether? And he will inform you of that wherein you differed. And judge thou between them by what God has sent down, and follow thou not their vain desires, and beware thou of them, lest they seduce thee away from some of what God has sent down to thee. And if they turn away, know thou that God but intends to afflict them for some of their transgressions, and many among men are perfidious. God has sent down the law, Al-Kitab, which alone must be followed in matters of inheritance, divorce, marriage, etc. Yet, the scholars of Islam are not content with following God's law alone. They have taken books written by men such as Bukhari as legal authorities with the Qur'an. This is shirk, ascribing a partnership with God in the realm of the law. This is chapter 42, verses 20 to 22. Whoso desires the harvest of the hereafter, we increase him in his harvest. And whoso desires the harvest of the world, we give him thereof, and he has no portion in the hereafter. If they have partners which ordain for them of doctrine that for which God has not given leave, and had it not been for the word of decision, it would have been concluded between them, and the wrongdoers have a painful punishment. Thou wilt see the wrongdoers fearful of what they have earned, and it will befall them. And those who heed warning and do righteous deeds will be in lush meadows of the gardens. They will have what they wish with their Lord. That is the great favor. So here we have the partners who are ordaining for them of doctrine. Doctrine is the set of beliefs, set of teachings, set of laws, set of rules. That's what the word doctrine means. So the partners, they are ordaining for them of doctrine that for which God has not given leave. And I will give you a specific example of that in the law of inheritance. So let's look at this example. This is the law of inheritance in the Qur'an, which I have looked at in a previous video, in which it is clear that the deceased children are to get a share of the inheritance first, followed by the honoring of a bequest by the deceased, and after all this, the settlement of his debts. The remainder is then to be distributed among the rest of his relatives. This is the plain and clear reading of chapter 4, verse 11. God charges you concerning your children, for the male is the like of the portion of 2 females, but if there are women above 2, then for them is 2/3 of what he left, and if she is 1, then for her is half. And for his parents, for each one of them is 1/6 of what he left if he has a child. Then if he has not a child, and they inherit from him his parents, for his mother is 1/3. But if he has brothers or sisters, for his mother is 1/6, after a bequest he has made or debt. Your parents and your children, you know not which of them is near to you in benefit. As an obligation from God, God is knowing and wise. If you want a fuller treatment of the laws of inheritance, I suggest you check out my previous video. I'll put a link in the drop-down box below. Coming back to chapter 4, verse 11, it is clear that the children get their share of the inheritance first, before any bequest he has made or debt. Yet, the religion of Islam has its own rules for what to do with the property of the deceased. Specifically, the religion of Islam mandates that the funeral expenses and debts of the deceased be paid off first, before the children can get a share of their inheritance. This is in direct opposition to the law of God, in which it is clear that the children get their share of the inheritance first, no matter what. The following is taken from Kitab al-Faraid, the book pertaining to the rules of inheritance. While laying down the rules for the distribution of the estate of the deceased, the first principle to be observed is that the property, both movable and immovable, can be distributed after meeting the following obligations. Number 1, funeral expenses. Number 2, clearing of the debts incurred by the deceased. 3, payment of bequest, if any, to the extent of 1/3 of the total assets. It may be remembered that the meher of the wife, if it had not been paid, is included in the debt. Moreover, it is not lawful to make a bequest in favor of a person who is entitled to a share in the inheritance. Furthermore, they have 4 stipulations as to who cannot get an inheritance. 4 persons cannot get an inheritance: a fugitive slave who has fled away from his master, one who has murdered one's predecessor intentionally or unintentionally, one who professes a religion other than Islam, one living in Darul Harb cannot inherit the property of one living in Darul Islam, and vice versa. None of these stipulations can prevent a person from getting an inheritance which he rightfully deserves. Specifically, I want to look at this stipulation that a person cannot get an inheritance if he professes a religion other than Islam. This stipulation is nowhere found in the inheritance verses of the Qur'an. Children have a right to their share regardless of their religion. By adding this stipulation, the shirk-based religion of Islam forbids what God has allowed, a heinous sin. Here we have in chapter 4, verse 7. To men belong a share of what parents and relatives leave, and to women belongs a share of what parents and relatives leave. From what is little thereof or much, a share ordained. So there you go. God has himself ordained a share for men of what belongs, a share of what parents and relatives leave. So this is just one example of the countless examples of laws in the religion of Islam which are in direct opposition to the law of God in the Quran. By doing so, Muslims have set up partners with God because they follow laws created by them instead of following the law that God has sent down in the Quran. Unless Muslims repent and follow the Al-Kitab, the law, the writ alone, they will continue to be punished by God. This is chapter 6, verses 155 to 157. And this is a writ we have sent down, one blessed, so follow it, and be in prudent fear, that you might obtain mercy. Lest you say, the writ was but sent down upon 2 groups before us, and we were of their study unaware. Or you say, had the writ been sent down upon us, we would have been better guided than they. And there has come to you clear evidence from your Lord, and guidance, and a mercy. Then who is more unjust than he who denies the proofs of God, and turns away from them? We will reward those who turn away from our proofs with an evil punishment for their turning away. This concludes my presentation on the topic of shirk. I hope it was of some use to you. God willing, until next time, peace and blessings be upon you.